It's 2 weeks before Malaysia's general election, and already the battle lines are being drawn in what promises to be one of the most divisive elections in the country's history. I'm NABILI, and on this edition of 101 East, we'll visit 3 potential hotspots and ask, what's the future for Malaysian democracy?
This is the most important general election in the history, in the nation's history. In fact, many people are waiting for the outcome to decide whether there's any hope for the future.
Well, today we have gathered to show love to the Prime Minister, but he don't want the love from the Indians.
I'm talking about a major impact, a defining moment in the history of Malaysia after 5 decades of independence.
A volley of tear gas sends the clearest possible message from the government to Malaysia's Indian community and to the country. This form of political dissent will not be tolerated. What was supposed to be a peaceful gathering quickly turned into open confrontation, resulting in 160 arrests and the increasing alienation of the Indian minority. The Hindu Rights Action Force applied for permission to deliver flowers and a petition to the Prime Minister in Parliament. That permission was denied on the basis that there was not enough police to secure the safety of the demonstrators. There were certainly enough police to prevent these few hundred protesters from delivering their letter, but not their message. And this, apparently, is what the government was afraid of. 5-year-old Vaishnavi Waitamurthy had written to the Prime Minister asking that he allow her father safe return from self-imposed exile. She would also deliver to him a petition asking for the release of detained leaders of the new Indian rights organization known as HINDRAF. The petition was to be accompanied with flowers and goodwill that quickly evaporated.
The Prime Minister didn't reply to her letter. Okay, let us say illegal. What's wrong in writing a reply to the 5-year-old girl? She is the citizen of the country, 5-year-old girl. The Prime Minister doesn't have single respect for the Indians.
February's protests turned into a cat-and-mouse game around the city as police tried to round up the ringleaders. The current HINDRAF spokesman was cornered in a Hindu temple by an armed squad, but they thought better of spraying a house of worship with tear gas, and eventually the protesters ebbed away, with their political aims now clearly defined.
In this coming election, we will prove India will never vote to the government. BERSIH.
The BERSIH is going to win the election, there is no doubt about it. But we are going to deny the BERSIH and the 2/3 majority, and that is going to be done by the Indian community.
Fiery rhetoric is one thing, but political reality another. And while some argue that it's clear evidence of the erosion of 50 years of political consensus, others say Malaysia's Indian community remains too small and too fragmented to make a real difference.
I think there's no doubt that there's plenty of discontent among the Indian community, within the Indian community, and it may translate into votes against the BERSIH. But the larger picture is that Indians do not form a significant majority or minority in many constituencies. So it's only in a few constituencies they can play the role of kingmakers, you know.
While the Indian community claims political marginalization in the country, they do at least have some representation here in Parliament. The former Deputy Prime Minister, ANWAR IBRAHIM, says he has been denied access to the political process altogether. Nonetheless, he continues to campaign. We travelled up north to the state of Kelantan to see him in action. ANWAR IBRAHIM is both Malaysia's most prominent opposition voice and, in many ways, its most anonymous. His party, Keadilan, will directly contest 95 parliamentary seats, and he's entered agreements with other opposition parties to coordinate resources against the government. Yet, few people these days hear his voice or his views. What is the biggest problem you're facing?
No access to the media, police permits are denied. Last night I was in the constituency close to Kuala Lumpur. After 5 minutes addressing, the police chief came and said, "Sir, sorry, you have to stop. You don't have a police permit." But I said, "We did apply, but you need 2 weeks." I mean, how do you get 2 weeks to apply for a police permit? coming to this stage with elections.
Anwar's been sidelined by the government since his conviction for corruption and sodomy. Even though the latter charge was overturned, Anwar is banned from standing as a candidate until April this year. He believes the decision to hold the election in March is no coincidence.
Clearly, we have never seen from 57 independence, in 1957, elections held this early, 1.5 years before the completion of the term, just to deny me my right, which means they are just nervous, imagining the possibility of my running for one parliamentary seat.
Despite the obstacles facing his party, he believes the opposition alliance is ready to challenge Barisan's parliamentary majority.
We will deny them the 2/3 majority, and we will push ahead beyond that. Now, if I'm denied from contesting, then I still have the option. We'll make sure that some of our friends have already mentioned publicly that if they are chosen as candidate, they will opt to resign 1 month after the elections to allow me to contest, which means I would still participate.
He certainly has some reason to be optimistic, looking at the crowd turnout at this rally. But Anwar Ibrahim has been in the game long enough to know better. Indeed, newspaper coverage the next morning made no mention of the rally. How's it going? I mean, what are you doing now in the run-up to the election? What's your strategy?
No, we are raring to go. We had firm up some of the major issues. Economics, number one, increasing prices, massive corruption, waste, and then issue of crime, and then of course we are dealing with the fraudulent process of elections too, which is a major problem which we have to address.
Anwar's not alone in being concerned about the integrity of the electoral process. According to BERSIH, an NGO dedicated to cleaning up Malaysia's electoral system, 82% of Kelantan's electoral list is described as vulnerable. Sharmila has direct experience of that vulnerability. In 2004, her husband Sanjay discovered that someone had stolen her identity and registered to vote in her name in Kelantan, even though she's never visited the state. She took her case to the Election Commission, or EC, and to BERSIH. I asked her why she suspected foul play.
Because I had never registered before, and I can't imagine how anyone would register unless they had my identity card.
Has the response you've been getting from the government been obstructive?
Oh, it's extremely obstructive and very disappointing, and they're just very wishy-washy about everything.
Identity theft is just one of the problems in the system. BERSIH Secretariat member FAISAL Mustafa takes me in search of what he suspects are phantom voters, names on the electoral register that he believes don't exist.
What I have found is 8 voters from different background, races, stay in one locality and in one address.
So this is the house, number 13, right?
Yeah.
And there are 8 registered voters here.
According to the electoral list, there are 8 voters registered in this house, and they are different race and different surnames.
And that's unusual.
It's very unusual.
Sure enough, number 13 isn't there. It's been joined into number 15, and the registered resident is not any of the names on the list.
No Frida?
No.
No Mazuki?
No.
No Muhammad Faisal?
No.
No Nik Nur Hayati?
No.
No Shahizan?
No.
No Yanti?
No.
Okay, one Chinese. No Chan Kian Hin?
No.
It doesn't stop there. In Selangor state alone, Faisal has found 104 voters aged between 100 and 129 years of age.
I have already lodged a report to the Selangor EC's office, and they have removed some of the names. But here we still have one voter who aged 129, born in 1879, still exists in the latest electoral list, and I believe that this name will come and vote this coming election.
Manipulation of the electoral process is also the major concern of Malaysia's main opposition party, the DAP. We've come to the DAP's stronghold in Ipoh to find out why they're calling this election the most important in Malaysia's history. The Democratic Action Party, or DAP, is predominantly Chinese. Its longtime leader, Lim Kit Siang, has felt the wrath of the government, having been jailed twice under the Internal Security Act, held without trial for a total of 3 years.
The issue in this election is bigger than individual, than party. It's the whole country's future is at stake.
The DAP's raised crime, corruption and the constitution as areas where the government and the country can do better. But more importantly, Lim Kit Siang says, this election is the last opportunity to stop a creeping spread of Islamic fundamentalism at the hands of civil servants who he calls little mullah Napoleons.
Those extremists, those Islamists who use their positions in order to show utter insensitivity to the diverse religions and cultures in the country. And they were not, we don't have such problems before. And this is by and large a demonstration of the very serious erosion of the fundamental cardinal building policy of Malaysia. Is a secular nation. Islam is the official religion, but Malaysia is not an Islamic state. That is greatly undermined, and that's why this is one of the fundamental issues that must be put to the electorate in this election.
Those are just some of the issues causing concern to Malaysia's opposition voices. After the break on 101 East, we'll get a response from the government and the Deputy Prime Minister Najib Tun Razak.